Who remembers Desert Storm? Now, for some of you, it was before your time. Some of you, it was after your time. And some of you, it was your time. So that's what we want to hear about. That's what we're going to talk about, because tomorrow, or the 17th, marks 33 years from Desert Storm. And it's a kind of a mystery. Desert Shield, Desert Storm. How did it happen? Why was there two different names in one different operation? How long did it go? So all those things we're going to discuss tonight. But first, just want to say thank you all once again for all your continued support. With our Patreon group, doing awesome. Ray from Queens, Gary M. Thank you, motivators. Continue to support and continue to be there for us. Remember, the Patreon group is free, so if anyone would like to join, getting ready to download some stuff as we speak. So hang tight on the Patreon group. Again, appreciate your support on that. It is going to be great. But everyone, again, thank you for your continued support, motivation. The comments are still as awesome as ever. We love reading the comments. I try to get back to as many of them as I can. And they're great. Keep them coming. Keep them coming, please. So tonight, again, we're going to talk about Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and Desert Storm. Some trivia, right? Again, in the comments, let us know how you feel about the quizzes that have been coming up. Tough ones, easy ones, too hard, too easy. Let us know. You got some topics you'd like to hear specifically? Let us know that as well. But we love doing the quizzes. We're going to show one a little later in the show specifically for Desert Storm. And I'll tell you how I did the first time I took the test. And I was there. So I shouldn't have missed any. I'll let you know how I did once we go through it. But it's great. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of knowledge in Desert Storm. Again, I know now, get it, it's in the history books, but I know some of you out there were there as well. Who knows? Maybe even shed some of the same blood in the same mud in the desert. So let's hear from you. And like we always ask, where are you coming in from and what are you drinking tonight? And as you can see, I got some nice hot coffee. So where are you calling from? I mean, where are you joining us from? And what are you drinking? Get comfortable. Again, Desert Storm, 33 years. Some of you weren't born yet. Some of you, again, it's old school. But Desert Shield / Desert Storm. And then how long was it? How long did it actually go? And then beyond Desert Storm. So meaning still in the same operation, but after the combat period, which was a short period of time, which we'll talk about a little later, how long were U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia, in Iraq, in that whole area before we pulled everyone out? So another good one. And then just the significance. Remember, there was a post for some of you that watch the channel a lot, the post from the movie Jarhead. Right, a lot of comments on that one. The movie was terrible, and you can't believe you put this on your channel. And so here's the thing with that movie, in my opinion, is now it wasn't the best war movie because it really wasn't a war movie. Or again, if the title is pretty deceiving, Jarhead. Expected to see a lot of cool Jarhead stuff, Marine stuff. To me, what it did was depict Desert Shield and Desert Storm pretty dang accurate. The downtime, the boredom, the letters home, all that stuff, playing football in full mop gear with gas masks on, the reporters, all that stuff happened. So the movie, I think, again, in my opinion, did a great job. Whoever the military advisors were for that one had to have been in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, because they nailed it. They got it pretty accurate. Again, was it a war movie that you can compare to Full Metal Jacket or Platoon or some of them era ones? No, but it did depict Desert Shield and Desert Storm pretty accurately. So let us know. Let us know in the comments what you think about that, what you'd like to hear about that. But again, 33 years ago, a lot of things have changed. Uniforms. So we're going into the desert for the first time. All the training we've been doing up to that point was all jungle training. Everything we did was jungle training. All of our gear and equipment was green. We didn't even have desert gear, desert equipment, desert tanks, desert colored anything. So that was the first thing we had to do is outfit everybody up. And we weren't prepared for that. Now they had that stuff on MPS ships, maritime pre-positioned ships that sit out in the oceans waiting for something to happen with all brand new gear on those ships, just waiting to be unloaded in whatever area we need. Luckily, that came soon after we arrived in Saudi Arabia, is where I was sent first. That's the first place we went to. So that was a huge change. And again, when we got there, it was a lot of training on desert ops because we hadn't done it in so long. And uniforms were catching up to us. They were sending it to us. We were unloading the MPS ships again, where they had desert camis, desert boots. I think I wore black boots for a couple months because they didn't have my size in desert boots. And then again, not the mute button, but the no sound. Good. Okay, so again, once we got there, we were, as engineers, we knew that we would be help fortify. That's when the construction part of the engineers comes out. And the first thing we started doing was fabricating places for the U.S. to live. Right, we move into a desert. You got to set up camp somewhere. So I know we built a lot of strong backs, is what they're called. And it's just a shell, a skeleton out of 2x4s and plywood of a GP tent. You remember those GP tents? Sleep like 18 or 30 Marines. All construction. We just start banging those out, building hundreds and hundreds of these strong backs, is what they're called, to put GP tents over just for people to live in. Some of them we even put concrete pads down, same size as a GP tent. We put the structure on it, put the tent right over it. Build camps as we continue to move forward. A lot of work, just cutting and nailing, and it was assembly lines. When we weren't doing that, we were filling sandbags, filling thousands and thousands of sandbags. So many, we even had sandbag chutes that we made out of plywood with 2x4s, and we just were tossing sand, just throwing it. Shovels going, it would funnel down, and someone down there collecting the sand in the bag, set it aside. Again, assembly line. Someone else was tying it, someone else was throwing it to the side, someone else was loading it on the back of a 5-ton, and the truck would take off. everyone was a sandbag filler. I remember they used this also as working parties for bulk fuel, right? All these vehicles needed to refuel, so we started building bulk fuel pits where we was, look at us right there, building the strongbacks. Nothing but cutting wood, and someone else was constructing. Or we'd have to load it up on a vehicle and take it somewhere and build it for someone else. You know, here's the funny thing about all those strongbacks. I probably was associated with building 800 or 900 of them. And we never slept in one. We, as the engineers, never slept in a single one of those strongbacks. We were under tents, under caminating, digging holes, sleeping in the sand. But I don't ever remember sleeping in one. And again, with the gear and equipment, you see I'm wearing green camis right there. The desert stuff wasn't even in yet. That's how new fighting in the desert was for us. So all new experiences. Building the camps, filling the sandbags, and you see that big lumber back there. We were building bunkers. So HE, heavy equipment, along with us, would come in and dig the huge big holes, and then we'd build a bunker, drop it in, fill it with sandbags, backfill it with sand. There were bunkers, because the biggest threat over there, if any of you remember, were the Scud missiles, right? Scud warnings all the time. So I guess I did sleep under a tent. That's not a strongback though that we built. That's just some concrete. I think that was still at the port. That was early on. You see a little shelf there. So once picnic tables, engineers are good at all that. CBs are even better at it. Building comfort items. Because we were there. I personally was there almost 10 months, 9.5 months. And Desert Shield was a lot of hurry up and wait. Just like referring back to the movie Jarhead, hurry up and wait. So we had time for all this. We had time for activities, for physical fitness. We had a Flintstone gym. Maybe you have some pictures of that. A real Flintstone gym with pulleys. All right there is a bunker in the ground. You see the holes dug out by heavy equipment. That's one of the bunkers that we dropped in. It looks like a 10 by 10 bunker with a door. And that was it. HE would dig the holes. We dropped the majority of the bunker in, and then obviously put it together, secure it as it was in the hole. Backfill. You see the sandbags in the background. See a lot of Marines not doing anything. I'm the only one working. But that was constant bunkers, sandbags, bunkers, sandbags, strongbacks. So you would think we got very good at construction, which I'm sure we did get. I don't think we got better, but we did get faster. So we developed, we knew he was the angle cutter. So he cut all the angles on this 4x4. This guy can cut a straight line. This guy couldn't, so he was a sandbag filler. Right there, a little backhoe that helped us dig our own personal trenches that we slept in for the Scud attacks. Again, all the defensive positions that we were building, we built our own also. And that's one of the ways helped out tremendously. Can you imagine trying to dig that big hole with just shovels or e-tools? So that's a C-track right there. That's what that's called. Getting some stick time on a C-track, helping us dig constantly. And you can't tell, but it's 100 and something degrees out. Then when we first got there in August, then as it became November or August, September, October, November started getting cold. December was freezing. In the desert is cold. If you've been in the desert in the winter, you know what I'm talking about. 29 Palms is cold in the winter. I'm sure that other deserts, there's nothing to block the wind. So just the temperature alone, and then the breeze coming in. Look at that's still at the port, so that's early. That's got to be August, September. When we still weren't sure. Look at those old jungle boots. Downtime, right? This is one platoon probably getting some downtime while the other platoon is cutting and building and cutting and building. Going out, building a base camp for another unit, another branch of service. We built a lot of pads for the Army, a lot of strongbacks for the Army. Then that platoon would come back. We'd switch out. That other platoon would get some rest and relaxation. And this is just one of those days right there. Still with the black boots, so I don't remember when the desert gear and equipment started coming in. I remember when the bulk of it came in. There it is. There's part of our Flintstone gym. So a inclined bench. You see the weights. Look at that's concrete. We would build frames, wood frames, pour concrete, put the pipe in there. You ain't changing the weights. You ain't changing the plates on that one. You got to just change the whole bar. You see, we were prepared. My man behind me's got some workout gloves. So mail, now speaking of which, mail, not like it is today when you go to combat where mail is kind of, in fact, you can send stuff before you even go and it'll be there when you get there. We didn't receive mail, I'm guessing, for 3 months, maybe before the mail started actually coming to and from. They start working. Of course, the post office had to be built there. And then the postman, and it was such a long process. And being a corporal, so I was an E4, I didn't know much about the bigger logistics that I did later in my later deployments as a first sergeant major. You know more about the big picture items, and mail being one of them. And even talking on the phone in Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and there is no the sat phones were few and far in between, and those were for emergencies only. So by the first time I got to call home, I think again maybe 3-4 months into it, and then I was on some green gear, right, from the comm guys, and it was one of those big brick phones, and over talking to my wife, over, babe, it's me, over, did you hear her talking on each other? It's horrible. So a little different now with today's technology. Again, some downtime in between filling sandbags, chasing a camel, maybe banana spiders. I know you've heard of those. Look it up. They're gigantic and they're aggressive. So maybe I just killed a banana or a camel spider trying to get away from it. Oh, and there's a camel. So some of these rest and relaxation times, a few months into it, and again, I remember it wasn't too hot, so August, September, October maybe, they built, I believe it was either Army or Air Force that occupied these safe camps that we would go back to. Take 6-7 hours to drive through the desert to get to the R&R place, and we get a couple of days where they had showers and pools and food and camels you could pet and take pictures in front of. And it was, again, select few who could get to go to these R&R places. Obviously, the leadership would send the junior Marines, give them a couple of days rest and relaxation, put them back in the back of a dump truck, just like this. A couple hours driving to that rest and relaxation period, but then you got to come right back. Let someone else enjoy that R&R. But that looks like I think we had been driving a few days. This is later on in the deployment. So as engineers, we were task force Ripper. Our job was to clear the minefields. We're engineers. And the closer we got to the Iraqi border, the less gear and equipment we could take with us. So about this time that you're looking at this photo right here, this is real close to D-Day, if you will, and that's about all we're traveling with. So instead of having 10 vehicles, now we're down to, that's a squad. We have one squad, and that's a dump truck. That's not even a troop carrier. It's a dump truck that we put as much stuff on it. See, we got a 50 cal up there on top, and that's how we got closer and closer to the border. You see beyond, that's one of the minefields, the thousands of miles worth of minefields that they had set up. Iraq was just on the other side. So the closer we got, that's when we started getting shot at. Incoming would come in random. That's before they had to, that's when we had to start firing back. Because up to this point, there was no, again, for us, for the engineers and Task Force Ripper that I was in, there was no fighting yet. We just kept moving closer and closer and closer to the border. But the closer we got to the minefields, that's when they started defending their area. which is interesting, and we'll talk about that in a minute. That's one of our platoons right there. That's Sergeant Rick Skinner. He was our platoon sergeant. Killed it. Took care of us. Pretty good at basketball. That's our gunner up top. He was a great. In fact, I think that was a 203. No, it was a 50 cal. He had 50 cal. We got Walker over there. Jay. So those are the guys that the entire time, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, that we spent together. And you see, yeah, we all need haircuts. We need to get it together. But as you can tell, it's colder now. So those aren't field jackets that we're wearing though. That's mop gear. So a huge percent of the time we were in mop level 1, just gas mask at the ready. But the Scud missiles, the Scud warnings, the sirens, we would get them frequently, a couple times a day. So instead of taking the mop suits off, we would just travel, and it was cold, so it kind of kept us warm. But you can only wear it for so long before it becomes ineffective. So we'd wear them until we had another one delivered, and then we'd hold that one for a while until we got another Scud attack or warning or false alarm, and we'd switch them out, and then just continue to move forward just like that. Again, less and less gear as we went along. You see the old style deuce gear, the flag vest opened in the front, and they look like desert flag jackets, but they're not. Those are just desert covers that we put over the flag jacket. And the mop suits, again, you see they're not desert colored either. So it's kind of hard to blend in when we weren't prepared for it. But again, as we move forward, less and less gear. So no more tents either. And the one of the aspects of it, you can only carry so much food with you because we don't have vehicles to bring all the MREs. And you talk about living off MREs for some time, 7-8 months off of MREs. And at one point, as we were very close to the minefields in the border of Iraq, we ran out of food completely. Luckily, and maybe we'll have a picture of it later, but we did manage to scavenger through some warehouses that had been blown up by the airstrikes, and there was some Spam and vanilla cakes and some fruit cocktail that we were able to scavenge some of that until we got resupplied with more MREs. So this is, again, I don't remember the exact date of this particular photo, but it was towards the end, towards the 100-hour war. Dang it, I gave you the answer right. It's one of the questions. 100-hour war. It seemed like just as soon as it started blowing up all the minefields, making lanes. Infantry was going through the lanes after we were proofing them, making sure that there was no live mines in there. It was a mess. There was thousands of mines. At one point, the wind would blow all the sand onto the mines. You couldn't see them. And then the wind would come in a different direction and blow all the sand off the mines, and then you could see them. But prior to that is when Saddam Hussein and all the Iraqis started lighting all the oil fields. So the oil spouts were shooting oil and flames straight up in the air. I remember at one point it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't remember, noon. It was high noon. And you could not see your hand in front of your face because there's so much oil in the air floating around. All the flames. You can see flames out in the distance barely, but you could barely see your hand in front of your face, and we're still moving forward. So we had a couple vehicles, and vehicles would get lost. They would bump into each other. It became very dangerous. So I remember you had to touch the Marine in front of you and behind you, and that's how we patrolled. It wasn't dark like night vision goggles you needed. It was dark as in soot was right in front of your face. So we couldn't see anything. Even the vehicles had to have someone held the driver standing outside. He held the Marine, he held the Marine, he held the Marine, and to the next driver. That's what the oil fields did to us, and it coated our bodies. We did wear gas masks as much as possible just because we didn't want to breathe in all the oil. But the burning oil fields was by far the worst. And nobody could see anything. So luckily the enemy couldn't see us either. And that continued to happen the closer we got to the border. And then when we got there, you've seen all the pictures of all the Iraqis surrendering. That's about how long it lasted. Once we started bombing them from up close, mortars and Red Cobras coming in and kind of clearing out the enemy side of the minefields, they gave up pretty quickly. They were also tired and hungry and out of food and out of supplies, so they were ready, at least in the area we were in Task Force Ripper. And as soon as we cleared the lane of the minefield, they started coming across, hands up, in their shorts and T-shirts, just to get on the safe side with the Americans so we can take care of them. All right, here we go. True or false? Here's a quiz that you'll see online later after this as well. Let's see if I covered any of the knowledge in the past 20 minutes or so. But let's let that roll, and we'll see if we can get some comments on it. If you're whoever's here with us this evening, again, welcome. 33 years tomorrow, so that'll help you on one of the questions. Desert Storm, the Persian Gulf War started on January 17, 1991. Is that true or false? Okay, kind of the basis of the show, but yes, true. The offensive known as Operation Desert Storm began. So that's when it changed from Desert Shield, which was an offensive operation to build up to this day, tomorrow, 33 years ago, starting Desert Storm era. So then when people talk about Desert Shield, Desert Storm, there are service members that were in, most everybody was in both Desert Shield / Storm, but there were some people that were only in Desert Shield or only in Desert Storm, and then follow on after that as part of the retrograde crew that stayed for months and months after everyone was back. And that's kind of, so again, with this being a new combat zone experience for the U.S., that's when I remember when we were retrograding out is when we started getting all of our desert T-shirts. Desert boots finally came in. Desert camis, more of the desert camis. All that stuff started coming in after that. All right, question number 2. We'll see if there's a couple good ones on here before we publish the entire thing. Are we going to roll the quiz? It is. Kuwaiti forces occupied Iraq between August 1990 and January 1991. Kuwaiti forces, did they occupy Iraq? Anybody know? We leave comments in the comment section because this is August 1990. And in one of my videos before, I told you about what happened in August 1990 was also my EAS. So did it happen in August 1990? Is it still rolling? Kuwaiti forces occupied Iraq between August 1990 and 91. The answer, false. It's the other way around. Iraq illegally occupied Kuwait. That was Saddam Hussein who aggressively tried to occupy Iraq. All right. So, and by the way, how do we like the quizzes? Again, some tricky questions every now and then, some stuff that makes you think extra hard, right? Some wording, maybe a little tough. Here we go. Third question. Operation Desert Sheath was the buildup of troops prior to Desert Storm. Is that true or false? The countdown timer. Operation Desert Sheath was the buildup of troops. False. The buildup prior to Desert Storm was Operation Desert Shield. You got to pay attention on these quizzes. Read the question thoroughly. Read the questions all the way through. Don't let anything get you. Do we like the quizzes? Again, I have asked before, but let us know what you think. We like doing them. Again, this particular one, I missed one, and I was there. And I didn't help make the quiz, but all right. The USMC Commandant during Operation Desert Storm was a former enlisted Marine. Is that true or false? Do you know your commandants? Do you know your prior enlisted officers in the Marine Corps? The commandant during Operation Desert Storm was a former enlisted Marine. So one, you got to remember who the commandant was during Desert Storm. True. General Alfred Gray, enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1950. Old school and an awesome commandant, in my opinion. He did awesome. Met him out there in Desert Storm and after. Again, in my opinion, he was a great commandant, great Marine officer. Loved serving under him. But he was prior enlisted. In places, I mean, a lot of people came through to visit us throughout the Desert Shield, again, because there was time, so people, dignitaries would come visit, and CGs and the commandant did. All right, Saddam Hussein invaded Iraq, which prompted the Persian Gulf War. Is that true or false? Did he invade Iraq? Saddam Hussein. Is that what he did, which prompted the Persian Gulf War? Comments down below. Is that what he did? False. He's the leader of Iraq, which invaded Kuwait, okay, illegally, again, in trying to invade Kuwait. And that's where we stepped in to help out. Why did we help out? Let us know in the comments. Oil, right? All those oil fields we were fighting for were the same ones that Saddam Hussein started burning. But the whole reason we're there, he's like, I'll show you. I'll just burn all the oil. Well, you can't burn it all. But that prompted us to move faster and take care and secure the area. Number 6, United States Marine Corps played a major role in Operation Desert Storm. Did the Marine Corps play a major role? Was it heavy, and what services and who went? Remember, we had Marines in our unit who were involuntarily extended because their EAS came up while they were gone. Again, I told you my EAS was August 1990. I was able to extend to go to Desert Storm, Desert Shield. But the Marines that were there already, because every Marine to the fight was the concept back then, everyone went. So they weren't going to send you home just because your EAS was coming up. So let's see the answer on this one. Did the Marine Corps play a major role in Operation Desert Storm? Just about the entire Marine Corps was there. So if you ask me, true. Definitely played a significant role in the Gulf War because we were all there. We didn't have any, and eventually we did have some re-enlistments. Again, I was on an extension being there, but I was able to re-enlist immediately after that. All right, number 7, Dick Cheney was the Secretary of Defense during the Gulf War. Again, do you know your chain of command? Easy one, yes, he was. Dick Cheney was the Secretary of Defense during the Gulf War. And let us know what you think about him. What kind of job did he do? Again, as a corporal during the time, I thought the chain of command was great. Great one. The Marine Corps Reserve did not participate in Operation Desert Storm. Is that true or false? The reserves? Really? Did they participate? I tell you, we had a unit next to us in one of our advances where our flank was completely exposed, and they said, don't worry, you're going to get some Marines there. Turns out it was a Marine Reserve unit that had a right flank. So the question was false. The Marine Corps Reserve did actively participate in Desert Storm. I don't know the numbers, how many, but I'm thinking all of them. Obviously, we have to keep a force back here in America, but they were definitely there. We had reserve forces on one of our flanks. All right, the Persian Gulf War began with a massive U.S.-led air offensive. Is that true or false? Kind of give it away in the beginning, how it all started for us as we were laying under the stars, not knowing really what was going on, where we were, who we were fighting. But yes, true. Operation Senior Surprise initiated the bombing campaign. And you'd read stories and awards of pilots and how many sorties that they ran, and hundreds and thousands of airstrikes. And you saw it again, that the convoys of Iraqi trucks just blown up. That cleared the way for us to come through. All right, General H.N. Schwarzkopf was the overall commander of Operation Desert Storm. Is that true? Saw a picture of him earlier. Again, he came out to visit us at one point to see what the engineers were doing. Was he the overall commander of Operation Desert Storm? Didn't get to hang out or chat with them, but the brief that he did give to the group that was there, again, I thought was as a motivated corporal, that was cool. True, U.S. Army General Schwarzkopf was the commander of operations during Desert Storm. Again, the limited knowledge I had back then of the generals in charge. I mean, granted, we were bored and hungry and tired and all the things, but it was everything we expected of an operation like that in the desert. Number 11, the Marines' focus in Operation Desert Shield was primarily offensive ground operations. So what was the Marines' main focus in Operation Desert Shield? I already talked about that in the beginning too. What was our mission in the beginning during Desert Shield? What part of that? What was our main mission? Was it combat? Right? We didn't start out fighting, right? Because where we landed so far back, we were preparing for a defensive operation to protect Saudi Arabia. So Operation Desert Shield was a defensive operation to protect Saudi Arabia. That's where we landed, in Saudi Arabia, and that's where we started building up the defenses. The bunkers, again, were for American forces, American troops, but a lot of places we occupied were still owned and occupied by Saudi Arabia. So that was the defensive part of operations. All right. Again, let us know in the comments what you think of the quizzes, in this one in particular, just for the anniversary of Desert Shield, Desert Storm. All right, the M1 Abrams tank was a key asset used by the Marine Corps in Operation Desert Storm. Did we use that tank? We saw it. True. The tank was a key asset used by the USMC in Operation Desert Storm. Tankers, we know that they're not here still today, but the tankers played a massive role in that's. The Iraqis had a big tank force as well. So we took care of business with those tanks that we took off the NPS ships that we talked about in the beginning. All right, number 12. Still true or false? Is this a good, accurate depiction of Desert Shield, Desert Storm? The CG of 1st Mardiv organized four task forces. All right, the CG of 1st Marine Division, he organized 4 task forces. Were they Task Force Pepper, Grizzly, Papa John, and Taro? Were those the 4 task force that the 1st Marine Division organized? Because they did, in fact, organize 4. What were they? False. That's not what the 4 of them were called. Close. But they were, in fact, Task Force Ripper, Task Force Grizzly, Task Force Papa Bear, and Task Force Taro. Those were the 4 task forces that were in operation under the 1st Marine Division. I personally was with Task Force Ripper. I'm getting some. And we are the task force I was involved with. We had tankers, we had infantry, everybody with us, and we just continued to move forward and took our slice of the minefield that was, again, hundreds of miles wide, but only like a football field long or thick, what have you. But it was filled with thousands of mines. And Ripper was our section of the minefield that we were moving up to destroy, make lanes, and let the infantry vehicles, track personnel through. Operation Desert Storm marked the first time the Marine Corps employed cyber warfare tactics. Cyber warfare. Desert Storm was the first time we did that. Is that true or false? Cyber warfare. Very popular today. Did we do it in Desert Storm? False, we did not. And this is the one I missed. Cyber warfare tactics were not a significant factor in Desert Storm. Huge today in all through Iraq and Afghanistan, but they were not a significant factor in Desert Storm. All right. Number 15, General Colin Powell served as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during Desert Storm. Is that true? True. Colin Powell. In history books, the history of it at my level at the time, didn't know. But yes, that is in fact true. General Colin Powell was the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff during Desert Storm. 16. First unit to cross the border into Kuwait was the 1st Marine Division's Task Force Ripper. Is that true or false? The first unit to cross the border into Kuwait. 1st MARDIV, 1st Marine Division, Task Force Ripper. And of the 4 different task forces, 4 different areas across the Iraqi border, which one went in first? Yes, it was Task Force Ripper. First unit to enter into Kuwait. All right. Again, let us know in the comments what you think of this quiz and all the quizzes. Really, let us know if we should continue. We do enjoy doing them. We like hearing the feedback from them. Let us know if they're too easy. Secretary of the Navy during Operation Desert Storm was a former Marine. Is that true? Secretary of the Navy during Desert Storm. Marine or not? Secretary of the Navy. Former Marine, which means still a Marine. Hurrah. Sean O'Keefe, SecNav, was a former Marine. Again, my knowledge of the chain of command back then was good. They were good. Number 18, the AV-8 Bravo Harrier II was first used in combat by the Marine Corps in the Gulf War. True or false? The Harrier. It's an awesome bird, again, in my opinion. I used to love watching them take off and land. Pretty dang impressive. Was first used in combat by the Marine Corps in the Gulf War. Is that true or false? Let's hear from some of you pilots out there. The wingers. I know you know the answer to this one. And this has been on a different quiz I think we've had before. True. Harrier II saw its combat debut in Operation Desert Storm. Saw a limited amount of it, just every now and then, again, on our push towards the border, we saw it every now and then. The air campaign was followed by the ground offensive and lasted for 100 days, right? Question 19. Air campaign was followed by the ground offensive, lasted for 100 days. Is that true or false? If you were paying attention, if you read your history books, close, but 100 hours. I mean, they call it the 100-hour war. And again, for us, where we were and I was pushed out ahead of my company at the time, a small contingency. We got tasked to clear a lane for some specific tanks. Seems like as soon as it started, next thing you know, we was waking up to it's over. Right, a sergeant major came by and told all of us we're racked down, we're on 50-50 watch, and he said, "Pack your stuff, we're turning around, going home. The war's over." And that was 100 hours. It's a 96. It's a weekend, 4-day weekend. Pretty amazing that we have been there for 8-9 months preparing for that, and then it lasted 100 hours. Question 20. The Marines played a leading role in the liberation of Kuwait City during Operation Desert Storm. Is that true or false? The Marines played a leading role in the liberation of Kuwait City. True or false? And again, a couple questions prior to that. Did we play a vital role in this? Yes, we did. The Marine Corps played a key role in the liberation of Kuwait City. I don't have too many pictures of that portion of it because, again, once that 100 hours was over, Task Force Ripper and the engineers I was with turned around and started heading back to start the retrograde. All right, we're going on month 9.5 or 10 by then. Time to retrograde and get out of there. Question 21. All right, the Marine Corps suffered the highest number of casualties among coalition forces. Is that true or false? The Marine Corps suffered the highest number of casualties. There were, I had a couple losses in our unit, Task Force Ripper, but it wasn't due to enemy fire. Believe it or not, when you train or work up something for so long, accidents are bound to happen. One was combat related, the other one wasn't. But did the Marines sustain the most? Yes or no? True or false? False. The Marines did not. And I don't know the exact numbers for all of them, but I want to think it's probably numbers wise, right? Per capita, the Marines are the smallest service. Osama bin Laden claimed this would be the mother of all battles. No, you've heard that term, that phrase before. Osama bin Laden claimed that this would be the mother of all battles. Is that true or false? Now, that phrase was said. It definitely was said. It's in the history books along with the rest of it. Did Osama bin Laden say it? Did he claim that for his own? No, it wasn't him. Saddam Hussein declared it, that this would be the mother of all battles. 100 hours. So, Osama bin Laden we'll discuss later. All right, number 23, almost done. Let us know how you're doing so far and when it's over. Desert Storm marked the first combat use of the Marine Corps LAV-25 armored vehicle. Is that the first time the LAV was used? Desert Storm. LAV, another great piece of gear if you ask me. I'm not an operator, so I know there's probably has some problems. Some operators, drivers may have a different story. True, the LAV-25 saw combat for the first time in Desert Storm. We had some attached to us, again, as Task Force Ripper, as an engineer, battalion, and company and platoon. After a while, we did have some attached to us as well. I know they're good in the winter because you can stay inside and keep warm. As far as maintenance and operating it, not an operator. All right, 24. The Marine Corps did not have access to any F-A-18s during Operation Desert Storm. Did we have the F-18 Hornets during Desert Storm? Air Wingers, where you at? Pilots, let's hear about the F-A-18. The Hornets, pretty awesome aircraft, again, from what I know on the ground side. False, the F-18 was part of the Marine Corps air asset in Desert Storm. That was 24. All right, question 25, last one. Again, please let us know in the comments what you think of this quiz. After 42 days of U.S.-led offensive air attacks, President Bush declared ceasefire. 42 days of U.S.-led offensive air attacks. And I told you at one point, we just laid down and looked up at all the aircraft going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, dropping stuff, coming back, getting some more, loading up, more sorties. 42 days, U.S.-led offensive air attack. President Bush declared ceasefire. True or false? And that is, yes, of course we did. President Bush declared a ceasefire on February 28, 1991. So, 100 hours war, 100-hour wars, 100-hour war. The buildup, the airstrikes, the thousands and thousands of sandbags and bunkers and defensive positions, and different ways that we had to check for mines, and we used knitting needles at one point, and you know, we were told the mines were magnetic. The eyelets in your boots could set it off. We were probing for mines. We'd have to take our boots off, and we just never knew. Their mercury switches on them if they tilt a certain way. Intel is intel. You never know. But there were plenty of mines that we had to either blow in place or just mark. So nobody did they go off when they weren't supposed to, of course. So definitely was dangerous. But the 100-hour war part, again, we had more Iraqis coming across surrendering than we did. We didn't have to capture them. They were coming right to us. And then the retrograde out took a while, but months to put us all over there and all the gear and equipment, and then didn't take us that long to get out. Carlos says, wasn't it that he declared victory? That was at the same time. That was it. 100 hours. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we wrap this up, let's hear some comments. Let's see how you liked the quiz, the little walk down memory lane. Those of you that were there, awesome quiz, says Rig Reynolds. Thanks, appreciate that. We love doing the quizzes. I don't do all the work, so thank you to the production team for putting all that effort into it and providing those quizzes for us. I really do like them. I like seeing the comments, and I know it jogs a lot of memories for some. Dobie, good to see you, brother. Says Mind Teaser. Look at that dog. It's a pretty dog right there. Mind Teaser it was. There were some tricky ones in there. And again, and I'll admit, remember I told you I only missed one, but I did guess on a few. And that was mostly the chain of command ones. Carlos, you missed 4. The chain of command ones, again, and I wasn't sure at that time. Again, I was a young corporal, but I did guess right. But a great quiz. I agree. Appreciate it. And we'll put that one out there as well. 420. Good to see you. Interesting. Different perspective. Again, I was a combat engineer. I was with Task Force Ripper. I even got sent up from my company at some point to directly help a tank unit. Is that you, Ray from Queens? Keep the quiz. Absolutely. Thank you. My production team is here and they hear it, so appreciate that. We love doing the quizzes. I like seeing the scores. I like to test myself. You never know. You can forget some things. So again, thank you all. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you for participating in the quiz. 40 days, Mark. 40 days for what? Thanks to the Patreon group. Once again, Ray from Queens. Gary M., appreciate your support. Everyone else, the Patreon group, it's I keep telling you, we're building up. We're getting ready to download some stuff. Right now, it's going to be great. You're going to enjoy the quizzes. For one, you're going to get those firsthand. Get the first shot at the quiz before we put it out. To everyone else, the Patreon group is free. We'd love to have you aboard. Everyone, continue to like and subscribe, make this community big. We got some good information to drop on the Patreon page here shortly, but we just can't thank you enough. We still got the merch you see in the background, hoodies. Right now it's a little cold. Any way you'd like to help and support, we appreciate it. And we couldn't do it or wouldn't do it without such a great community like all of you here. So thank you for joining us. If you have any recommendations or suggestions on anything to continue this motivation going, please, by all means, let us know. Let us know. And we'll be back soon. The lives, I know we did ask last time, what's the best day to do it? Johnny, we got to work with everyone's schedule to include the production team. So we're doing the best we can to keep it motivating. Carlos says, how do I get the Patreon group? On the page, brother. Go to our channel, the description down below, and that's where it has the merch and the Patreon page and all the information about our page. So on the channel, on our page, hit the description and all that stuff will drop down. Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate you asking that. Still on the quarter deck. All right. Oh, that's Ray. Ray, still on the quarter deck. Keep pushing. And how many did you miss? 4? So 22 push-ups per question missed. We haven't talked about payment yet. But thanks for playing, Ray. All of you, thanks for playing. Thanks for participating. All right. Semper Fi, 0311. Backbone Mason, 2003 to 2011. Semper Fi, my friend. We will definitely be back. Stay motivated. Stay blessed. Continue to support. Do your buddy checks. Check your friends. Make sure everyone is good to go. And we'll see you all next live. Semper Fi, my friends. All right. Drop your link in the chat. That's what we do in our shows. Thank you, Ed 420. Appreciate that. Drop your link in the chat. We'll do. Semper Fi, my friends. All right.